So recently we went over my credit card setup and strategy for the rest of the year. But how do you build a personalized strategy that maximizes value from your lifestyle? Having gone through 13 cards, almost 2 million points, and tens of thousands in value from rewards, here are the 4 key steps you need to build the perfect setup. By setting your foundation, choosing your direction, building your collection, and adding your additions. Alright, so step number 1, make sure you're setting your foundations right. Like a house of cards, without a solid foundation supporting all your future cards, things can get real bad real fast. In this step, forget about the rewards or optimizing which card to use for which type of spend. No, here, the main focus is to get into good credit card habits and learn to use these cards properly. Like the golden rule, always paying your bill in full and on time every single time. You never want to carry a balance, not only because of the late fees and interest charges, but because they'll affect your credit score over time, with a whopping 35% of your score being affected by your payment history. You also might want to keep your credit utilization low, maybe by paying off any big charges right when they post. That said, we all make mistakes, myself included, because just a few weeks ago, I forgot to set up auto payment on one of my new cards and actually got dinged with a late fee and interest charges to a total of over $70. Fortunately, I have a good history and relationship with Chase, so I called them up, explained the situation, and they were able to drop all the fees as a courtesy. So if you missed a payment and it is your first time, you could always try calling and seeing what they can do. Now, in addition to good credit card habits, if you're just starting out, you might be wondering, how do I even get my very first credit card? Well, there are several paths you can take here. One of the most common paths is going the secured card route, something like the Quicksilver secured card from Capital One. Basically, how secured cards works is that you put up a deposit or a collateral and they give you a line of credit equal to that amount. So put in $200 as a deposit and get a $200 credit line. That way, it's a win-win situation. You get to practice good credit habits and they don't have the risk of you running away with the money, given you can only spend how much money that you already put with them. And then over time, once you prove yourself out, they'll regularly review your account and potentially give you your deposit back and upgrade you to the regular unsecured version of the card. Another way to start off is maybe you're in college and qualify as a student and you can go for student credit cards. Something like the Savor One Rewards card for students. These are still unsecured cards, so you don't need to put up any deposit, but probably because you're doing higher education, you're deemed responsible enough to offer you an entry-level credit card. I mean, if the government can loan people hundreds of thousands of dollars for school, then the credit card issuer can probably extend you a small credit line. Usually there's also a non-student version of the exact same card, so when you graduate, you can always change to that version of the card and not lose all that you've built with that card. So with both secured cards and those student cards, you'll end up having the regular version of the card anyways, and which likely does not have any annual fees. And that's important because you can keep this card open forever without having any fees attached with it, while it continues to help build your credit profile with increased available credit affecting 30% of your credit score, as well as length of your credit history contributing to 15% of the score. And then there's being an authorized user. If you have someone who will trust you enough to be an authorized user on one of their cards, you can set that up and get your own version of that card for you to use. And that's because that someone will be responsible at the end of the day for any issues that come up, like you not paying off that version of the card. But if all is good, then you get a credit card to demonstrate how you pay off your bill every single month, a decreased utilization, which will overall help build your credit score fast. All right, so now that you've built your foundation, step 2 is choosing your direction. And by direction, I mean one of the 2 common paths that people usually go down, one being cashback and the other being travel. With cashback, those cards are usually more straightforward and simple to use. You get a certain percent back on your spend for different categories, usually through statement credit, and that's it. There's minimal extra effort and you'll usually get between 2 to maybe 5% in value for your spend, depending on category. A great example example can be your Chase Freedom cards, which will give you 5% in rotating categories, 3% in dining and drugstores, or your unlimited getting 1.5% back on everything else. There's even the Wells Fargo Active Cash with its flat 2% back on everything, or even the Saver One with 3% back on some major categories like dining and grocery stores. But the reason why I put effort into credit cards is because my direction is for travel, which is where you'll usually get those outsized value from maybe 2 cents per point on the low end to 10 cents or more per point on the high end. The only caveat here is that the better the redemption value, the more work you have to put in, as well as the more flexible you have to be with your availability. Because it's not as simple as just going out and buying a business class flight and then redeeming some points towards it. No, these type of rewards require knowledge about which type of flights and hotels fall under which programs, including their partners, where all those redemption sweet spots are, as well as be flexible enough to find availability that can suit your travel dates. I won't go too into detail here, but I'll link another video where I go through my exact process. Now, the third direction kinda is for people who want pure simplicity with maybe 1, maybe pushing 2 cards. You have to be much more selective if you choose to go down this route, but a couple cards I usually see people go for fall under Bank of America with their customized and unlimited cards. Basically, with the customized, you'll earn 3% in a choice category, with 2% at grocery stores and wholesale clubs, and with the unlimited, you'll earn 1.5% on everything else. But the bonus here is if you have a good banking relationship with Bank of America, you could get some massive boosts across all of these categories. For example, if you have over $100,000 with Bank of America, you'll get the maximum 75% boost on these categories, turning your 3% to 5.25, 2% to 3.5, and 1.5% to 2.62% cashback. Given the baseline good redemption rate for cashback is 2%, these are some amazing cashback rates with little to no extra work. Now that you've decided your high-level direction you want to go towards, it's time for step number 3, which is building your collection. If you chose cashback, then your choices are much simpler, going with many of the cards we mentioned earlier in the video. But if you chose travel, this is where things really get started. However, that's not to say that some cards in the different categories don't overlap. For example, why would you go for the Freedom Unlimited with 1.5% cashback when you can get the Wells Fargo Active Cash giving you 2% cashback? That's because of systems or ecosystems of cards. People usually get multiple cards because they work well together, and usually those cards fall within a single issuer, with the 4 popular ones being Chase, Capital One, Citi, and American Express. With Chase, you have the so-called Chase Trifecta, with the Freedom Unlimited, Freedom Flex, and the Sapphire Preferred, where you'll get 1.5% in base earnings, 5% in rotating categories, and the ability to supercharge all of your points with the Sapphire Preferred. Or with Citi having the Citi Double Cash, the Custom Cash, and the Premier, giving you an all-round awesome package for some amazing cash back rates or point earnings through some major categories, like 2 times on everything, 5 times on certain categories, and 3 times on some select broad categories. Or there's the simpler Capital One, with the Saver One giving you 3 times on a bunch of common categories, and the Venture X giving you a catch-all 2 times miles on all of your spend, along with some nice luxurious perks. And then the most expensive of them all, American Express with its Blue Business Plus, Gold, and Platinum cards that give you thousands of dollars in credits to use, along with amazing multipliers like 4 times on dining and groceries. But one caveat, the reason why you want to build a solid foundation in step 1 is that these cards require a much higher credit score, usually in the high 600s to even high 700s, as well as higher income thresholds, which usually comes with time as well. You'll also not want to miss a payment with these cards because they're nowhere near as lax as some other beginner cards in terms of things like interest rates. That said, with so many different systems out there, I believe that the best system to start out with is Chase, and there's several reasons why. First, 2 of the cards in the trifecta are also amazing beginner cards with no annual fees, meaning they're perfect for your foundational or base cards while still already taking steps towards this amazing setup. Second, as you apply for more cards, you'll slowly learn that different issuers have rules on when you'll get approved for new cards. And when it comes to Chase, you have the infamous 524 rule, which states that you will not get approved for a new Chase card if you've had more than 5 new cards in the last 24 months of any issuer, which is why going the Chase route will help you start the clock earlier with those cards. And then lastly, I think Chase points are the #1 point out of all the ecosystems, given its very strong 1 cent per point floor for cashback, 1.25 or 1.5 cents per point for travel through their portal, depending on your Sapphire card, and strong travel partners like Hyatt, Aeroplan, or Virgin Atlantic, where you could redeem usually for upwards of 2 cents per point. When you're starting out, it could also be confusing having so many different points across so many different issuers, so sticking to one and mastering it could help you maximize your values. And maybe when you're done just one system, you decide that you're good. You could just stop there. But if you do finish with the Chase system and want more, I would consider cards from the Capital One or Citi ecosystems, while still keeping an eye out for any American Express cards that might suit your lifestyle. Because if they do, you can get a ton of value from them. Just like how I use enough of the credits on the American Express Platinum card to justify the $6.95 in annual fee every single year. If you travel a ton, that could be an amazing card. Or if you go grocery shopping or dining a lot, then maybe a card like the Amex Gold with its 4x multipliers might be better. In my personal opinion, I think Amex is second only to Chase, given they have very similar partners, but also has ANA, which contains one of the best sweet spots of all credit card redemptions, with just 95,000 points giving you a round-trip business class flight to Asia, which is usually less than even the welcome bonus on the Amex Platinum. The only reason you don't want to get Amex cards whenever is because of its once-in-a-lifetime rule, which says that you'll only qualify for a welcome bonus on a certain card just once, and that's it. This is why you'll usually want to wait for very high offers or all-time high offers before you go for Amex cards, because you can only get that bonus once. For example, going for the Amex Platinum when there's a 150k offer instead of the baseline 80k, that's a major difference in points. And that's in contrast with other cards like the Chase Freedoms, where there's a 24-month limit between bonuses, or the Chase Sapphire cards having a 48-month limit between their bonuses. So that's step 3, building your base collection of cards that will be your workhorse cards for most of your spend. Have the Chase Trifecta, then you have most of your bases covered from dining to online groceries to travel and almost everything else. If Chase doesn't fit your lifestyle, then consider Capital One, Citi, or American Express. For most people, this is enough, knowing that you'll be earning much more than the typical 2% back in cashback for all of your spend, and definitely more than if you weren't using credit cards in the first place. But for some people who want to take it up a notch, myself included, or those who travel a ton and want all of the perks possible, then you want to move to step 4, which is making your additions. You want status, free hotel nights, upgrades, and elevated travel in general. These are the type of cards you'll want to add to give you exactly those things. And the first group of cards you'll want to consider here are the generic but more premium credit cards. We already mentioned the Amex Platinum, which is part of the American Express ecosystem, but is also a great card for elevated travel experiences in general. Given you can justify the $6.95 in annual fee with all of the credits that it comes with, you'll be delighted with elite status like Hilton Gold and Marriott Gold that actually do give you upgrades here in the US, depending on when and where you stay. Elite status renting cars that could give you pretty much any car you want on the lot, as well as lounge access for you and your guests to some of the best lounges in the world. It's also one of the few premium cards that are more general, offering you perks even if you're not particularly loyal to one brand or the other, with some other similar cards being the Sapphire Reserve or the Venture X. Then you have hotel cards, which are amazing, especially if you know you're staying at a particular chain of hotels a lot, and that can benefit from faster elite status earning, points for award bookings, free nights, and sometimes even multiples of them. Take the Hilton Aspire for example, a card that's probably overpowered even with its $450 in annual fees. I have a whole video going through the card, but basically for $450, you get 150,000 points, which depending on where you redeem can be worth much more than the annual fee already. But there's also the annual free night, again could be worth hundreds to over $1,000 on the more aspirational properties. 2, their top end diamond status, giving you best chances for upgrades, lounge access, and more, on top of credits for various use cases, which are all included on this $450 card. Again, you would only go for this card if you travel a ton or have plans to travel a lot soon, staying at these Hilton properties. Because if you don't stay at those properties or you're not traveling a lot anyways, then no matter how good this card may be, it might have zero value to you. Fortunately, there are other equally amazing cards like the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant or World of Hyatt cards that each give you hundreds if not thousands of dollars in value for their respective chains. Or maybe airline cards, usually giving you free checked bags to credits to faster elite status earning, which will really elevate your flights. There are cards from United, Aeroplan, Southwest, Delta, and more, so you just have to see if you fly enough, and B, which airline do you fly most often. But that said, even having free checked bags for a major party can already be hundreds of dollars each way, especially if you're carrying items like sports equipment or something. Make one big group trip a year, and it's already more than enough to cover the annual fee on one of these cards. Really, at this stage, cards are more on a case-by-case basis. Maybe your lifestyle changes. You can product change cards, cancel cards, or add new cards that will adjust to your new spending style. But by following these 4 key steps, you'll have a solid foundation and a base set of cards you can always count on, with other cards being added or removed depending on what you need. That said, if you want to see a real credit card setup that I personally use to maximize value for my lifestyle, go on and check out this video where I break it all down. See you over there.